issue between in terms of the business propositions, the opportunities, and the barrier to market. .me. Some Chinese company has the .com. We're in negotiations at the moment, so that should be settled soon, hopefully, because that'll definitely increase the SEO. Just to let you know a bit about CryptoPay before I get into it, we are one of the longest running UK and European Bitcoin exchanges, merchant processors, and one of the larger prepaid card issuers for Bitcoin. We also handle all of our own wallets. So at the end of the day, the great thing about the gateway for CryptoPay is we make Bitcoin fungible. We give on-ramps and off-ramps that allow people to get fiat money into the system, and they don't need to worry about keys. They don't need to worry about the complexity involved with the amount of Bitcoin that they're trying to manage. They can hedge it in whatever currencies they want. And what we're building is to have basically a super wallet of options for on-ramps and off-ramps so that you can get paid in Bitcoin, you can operate in Bitcoin, but using it with traditional legacy options. So cards, banking, internet banking, picture like a PayPal meets Revolut meets Bitcoin, yeah? I hear this Revolut talk all the time. Well, I guarantee that model is definitely something that we're emulating, but on a much bigger scale. As far as Bitcoin is concerned, I discovered Bitcoin back in probably 2012, early 2012. I was part of a company at the time where we set up the first cash to Bitcoin network with MoneyGram in the United States. And at the time, Bitcoin was $1. Yeah? And when we set this up, it was a money order service, so people could actually go and do a money order for Bitcoin at any red phone in America. It was a MoneyGram situation. That obviously saw the rise of Bitcoin going up to $30, $40, $70 with the liquidity and the interest. And over time, obviously, much of the services improved, because at that time, this is 3 or 4 years ago, you couldn't even buy Bitcoin. It was so complicated and complex. And the ability to get cash into the system was a very, very good thing. So at the end of the day now, what we're doing here 4 years on is we're still trying to build these on-ramps and off-ramps into Bitcoin, right? I've done a load of different things over my career. My background is mainly in high risk. I live for high risk, so Bitcoin is perfect for me. Being a payments guy, I've done high-risk processing for many, many large organizations over my career, mainly focused around gaming, mainly focused around FX, adult, anything high risk that regulators and institutions need to understand in terms of how we package it up, how we do all the compliance checks, how we put our processes in play. That's what I specialize in. So when I discovered Bitcoin in 2012, my brain immediately went, wow, this is awesome. Everybody in the legacy payment space said I was crazy. Yeah? So why are you going to do this? You're not going to make any money. Well, so far they're right, but hopefully that won't be the case moving forward, because we're still in a very nascent market. You got to understand. So all these different companies, they're doing these presentations and talking about their business. Phenomenal. It's fascinating. However, we are still in a bit of cowboy and Indian territory. So if you all remember, I see a lot of older faces in the audience, so I'm sure everybody remembers the dot-com era, the hype cycle. We are still very much at that hype cycle. I do not know who the pets.com is. I can make assumptions. But what we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of consolidation right now. Do you know why? Because maturity. Because any time you go through a new technology cycle, it's the same thing every time. Every tech cycle is the same thing, right? The technology is nascent. The market is unprepared. We don't know how to regulate it. We don't know what to do. Everybody's up in arms. Everybody's confused. Everybody wants to go back to the old way because it was easier. But again, we're in a tech cycle. Adoption. Changing consumer mindset on things, especially around financial services, is very difficult. A lot of people don't want to even think about consumer mindset, but at the end of the day, that's what you need to think about, because adoption is key. Customer acquisition is key. And being able to deliver this new thing this new way of operating in a financial market using Bitcoin or whatever it might be, that needs to be delivered to the everyday customer, to the everyday mom who's going into the shopping and doing her shopping at Asda or Tesco or whatever. No one's going to be doing it unless we actually build the rails and build the facilities or the gateway to actually be able to integrate what is truly powerful about the technology, being that of Bitcoin, into the actual financial ecosystem. John made a good point earlier in the sense that, you know, we have a much better MySQL, right? The blockchain is a much more transparent, immutable, auditable database that we can now use and utilize. I mean, the fascinating thing about the Bitcoin blockchain for me is the aspects of real-time auditability. Because technically speaking, from a payment perspective, regulators now would have the ability to tap in and have a direct feed around every single aspect of a payment, real time. So technically speaking, why would you actually have a bank doing AML? Right? So there's a lot of very exciting things, and like John said about Excel, you know, only 2% of people are actually, you know, people are just using Bitcoin right now because they want to hedge value. They want to get money in, they want to play the market, they want to take a gamble, they want to take a little risk. Obviously there's other models in terms of payouts and all that, which I'll talk about. But right now, it's only being, it's very high level. Nobody's really going down into the actual infrastructure, but you're seeing that a bit with all these blockchain companies trying to figure out what works. Yeah. I remember I was involved in a business about 10 years ago or so with the founders of Salesforce. And it was my first little entry into this little fintech space. And when Salesforce started, they were turned down by everybody. Everyone turned them down, yeah? Because at the time, everybody wanted to, you know, host their information in a secure facility. Nobody wanted to put it in the cloud. We knew what the hell that was. We still don't know what the hell it is. Yeah? What is it? It's a word. That's it. But it's openness. It's access. And Salesforce changed the game because it allowed that open access to actually excel and grow. As far as the blockchain versus Bitcoin versus consortia, I have an interesting journey myself because at the end of the day, I do a lot of consulting. I've invested in a few different Bitcoin businesses and blockchain companies. I actually started with a bunch of different payment institutions early on, 2013, 2014 in Bitcoin. And then I left to start my own business, and that was a startup software company building private blockchain. Right? And what I experienced in the private blockchain space was fascinating because at the end of the day, it gave me firsthand knowledge of exactly why, because I was told for a long time, the Bitcoin blockchain, that's where the power is, that's where the liquidity is, that's where everything goes back to. All the roads will always lead back to Bitcoin. I said, that's bullshit. That is not going to happen. Yeah, I'm going to build this private blockchain for this bank or for this government or whatever. I was wrong. And I will continue to tell the story and make sure that everybody knows I was wrong because I am firsthand example of why building out a private blockchain business or company is not the way to go. So at the end of the day, the actual roads and on-ramps and off-ramps, whatever you want to call it, for Bitcoin is so much more powerful and easily accessible. The openness, right? The internet is open. Look at what we've done here. All Bitcoin, all the blockchain is a stack. And right now we don't have the HTTP, the SMTP, the layers of the blockchain stack aren't established yet. It's just guts. Yeah? Who can actually do anything with guts? Nobody. But as it matures, as the technology becomes less nascent, that blockchain stack is slowly being put together. Yeah? From the messaging to the reference data to the security, all that stuff. Yeah? And it's happening, you can see it. And quite frankly speaking, just as a Salesforce example, the private blockchain companies, however many they are, I think a lot of them will also realize as well, whether it's in a year or 2 or 5, that the roads will always lead back to Bitcoin at the end of the day. The tallest tree in the forest, as they say, you know. Now, as far as the growth within the Bitcoin space, I've seen it from the early days when it was under $1 to now at, what is it today, 1180, something like that. It's not about the value though. Okay, this is about an actual life-changing, world-changing solution to change our mindsets about money. Because from a consumer mindset, you know, especially in this market, yeah, because I've done a lot of business over the years in Russia and CIS. If you don't have cash at home, you're stupid, right? If you don't have cash in your pillow, what the hell? If you don't have cash hidden in a book somewhere at home, right? I look through all my wife's stuff, so, you know, euros fall out everywhere. What are you doing? That's how my grandma taught me, and that's the truth. Cash will always be king, you know, because you own it. It belongs to you, nobody else. Nobody else has oversight. Nobody can stop you from pushing cash to somebody. That's your decision. Now, the thing about Bitcoin, which all the other technologies have failed on, is to have a system to digitize that cash to also maintain the ownership that you have of that cash. So now when you actually have your cash and you want to operate in the online space, into this internet world, well, now you can. And now nobody will stop it because Bitcoin is not a pull mechanism. That's the main difference between Bitcoin as a payment mechanism and credit cards. Yeah? Credit cards are a push and a pull. So you could do the recurring. Yeah? You don't have to give authority. People could just take the money, no problem, fraud, yada, yada. Bitcoin, you can't do recurring. I'm sure other people tell they can, but in the back end you can't. Bitcoin is a push mechanism. It's your money. Nobody else owns it. But now that you have a digital value representation of your cash, you can actually use it to your advantage in a way that won't affect your current feeling about owning your own money. You know, obviously we still have a long way to go. We have a very long way to go. This is so early days, and we have so many companies all popping up left, right, and center. It's so funny. I have a grin on my face because it reminds me so much of you know, the .com booms, the gaming booms, all the businesses going online. There will be a ton of consolidation over the next 2 years. You will see a lot of these companies being acquired, a lot of these companies merging, most of these companies falling and not succeeding. That's what happens. It's the facts of life. But it will become much clearer in terms of where this is going and how beneficial it will actually be. You know, money has been around for forever. I mean, thousands of years, right? Our whole understanding of money and economic perspective is been the same. Technology really hasn't changed that. It's just made it better and more efficient, right? Bitcoin is that. But developing consumer adoption is the key. And the fascinating thing, is tell me I have 5 minutes. I'm sure they don't want to hear me speak anymore anyway. But the fascinating thing is the fact that, you know, CryptoPay is doing exactly what I had envisioned from day one. And that's why I got involved 4 years ago with the guys, the founders, Dimitri and George, you know, and acted in an advisory capacity for that time. And then after going through some other experiences and starting up my own businesses and what have you, I saw exactly what they had done. And this has to be the easiest, most efficient way and secure way to buy, use Bitcoin. It is a very, very interesting model and one I encourage you all to sign up for and experience for yourself. We are currently operating most parts of the world, except the United States, sanctioned countries, obviously. You know, with our card program and with the merchant processing, we're going to be launching some very exciting things. We have a new program launching in 2 weeks, and we also have some very, very exciting corporate solutions on payouts, which we're very busy in. So, you know, I'm more than happy to talk with anybody about the service. It's really self-explanatory. That's why I don't like selling it. I don't need to. So, you know, take a look. Let me know what you think. Any issues, feel free to contact support, though, you know. Look, I'd love to take some questions, if you have any, around payments or Bitcoin or any of the obnoxious rumors you've heard around Bitcoin. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Where is your biggest growth?
Yeah, so the biggest growth right now for us is Europe, obviously, considering passporting. So currently our biggest countries are Italy, Germany, Poland. Obviously, we are launching some very exciting services in the UK coming soon, so that'll be an interesting market as well. But we still serve that market, it's just not as big as it should be. Yes?
So what about Ethereum and smart contracts?
What about
Will
it?
those eventually lead
What about
back
it?
to Bitcoin? I mean, like you say, all roads lead to Bitcoin.
That's true.
Do you think like smart contracts are some fad and they'll eventually go back to Bitcoin or some appender to Bitcoin?
I don't think it's a fad, but I think that as the technology gets more mature, I think that you'll see a lot more solutions being built out utilizing the Bitcoin blockchain. So at the end of the day, whilst I might like what Ethereum is doing, you know, I'm focused on Bitcoin.
Or at least the payments.
For payments, again, you know, that's another conversation. But what we do with the actual platform is we make Bitcoin payments efficient and possible and easy for the everyday user. We're not a trading platform. Don't get me wrong. We're not a Bitstamp. We're not a Bitfinex. If you want, you can set accounts up there. We are your everyday approach to, so where you don't have to manage the keys. You don't have to do anything. It's just the everyday user. And we do white label.
Yeah, so I wanted just a quick comment to you that the smart contracts for Bitcoin already exist. It's called Rootstock.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And
That's
I
right.
wanted to ask you how are you regulated, and can you comment on that, how you deal with regulation?
Sure, that's a really good question, thanks. And sorry, we'll continue to say. I've been working with the UK government for about 5 years myself. At the end of the day, I started and founded the UK Digital Currency Association, to where we consulted and worked with the Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, our Financial Conduct Authority, which is the FCA, and obviously I built the software company, blockchain company, which was the first blockchain platform to be in open procurement for UK government. As far as our licensing approach, according to FCA guidelines, still, we're not required to be licensed. We are not holding customer funds at the moment. You know, as far as EU is concerned, considering the new 4th directive as well, there is a framework now for companies to be operating, but it's still very high level. So the 5th directive will cover that, and there will be other license things that come in the future. But right now, that's not required. However, we are an e-money institution, or at least that's how we are looking at our objectives, and we are going through our licensing currently, both in the UK as well as Europe.
Hi.
Hi.
Houston, we have a problem. The problem is that the great battle now between payment processors and Bitcoiners. Why? Because if I exchange with you Bitcoins with cash, there is no problem. But if you use online payment, I am subject to have chargeback, 180 days of chargeback. Every processor, from SEPA transfers to PayPal to Skrill to Neteller to OKPay,
So
all online payments are dangerous for me that I exchange Bitcoin.
Yeah,
what about this, and what about Europe that wants to trace all services of wallets and Bitcoin exchangers?
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, we're holding customers' money. So whatever I need to do to comply to that, I will, number one. Number two, as far as the acquiring is concerned, appetite is growing. People's tummies are getting bigger, yeah? The processors are hungry for this. The FX, right, the interchange. And we're actually going to be launching credit and debit in about a month's time or so. So that's an exciting feature for us. But obviously, it's all in payments, and it's relationship driven. It's also about your flow, as well as your risk model. At the end of the day, we have proprietary tools in place, and in terms of how we check our users, how we monitor, in terms of using AI and various different techniques on behavior to make sure that we comply and that we give our acquirers what they would need as far as their risk teams or compliance teams. But at the end of the day, buying and selling Bitcoin with traditional payment methods is the absolute goal. Yeah.
Okay,
Are we done?
thank
Cool.
you very much.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.